Yeah, it's recording. It's not letting me move it. There we go. Okay. So anyhow, yeah, it's interesting. I want to go out here, look at week 6, see where we're supposed to be as we're entering this. It says we should be talking about chapters 9 and 10. I don't think we made it that far yet, right? I think we're actually a little behind that. And it's because the quiz was for 7 and 8, right? Yeah, so we can actually move on probably. I just got to see where we're at in the book to make sure. I hate saying, yeah, we're going to move forward and then miss like 20 things. Oh, what do you mean I don't have access? I do have access. I don't know why they show the book twice. You would think they'd remove the one that doesn't work. I wonder if I can remove the one that doesn't work. No. Yeah, it doesn't allow me to. Whatever. We'll get there. Okay, so we were last on chapter 6. We talked about database management systems. A little bit about, so I think we covered most of this, right? Because we started talking about business intelligence and stuff like that. So when we look at chapter 7 is about telecommunications, the internet, and wireless technology. I'm glad I could read that to you. Primary goals of this are: what are the principal components of telecommunications network and the key networking technologies? What are the different types of networks? How do internet and technology work? And then what are the principal technologies and standards for wireless networking, communication, and internet access, etc. Right? This we actually started talking about already. We talked about infrastructure a little bit and the different types of networks and stuff like that. We talked about analog signals, digital signals, all that good stuff. We talked about, we didn't talk about local area network, campus area network, metropolitan area networks, and WANs, wide area networks. Easiest way to look at it is that we have a local area network, which is basically Northwood campus. All these computers are connected together somehow. We actually go a little further because it says up to 1,000 meters. We're actually more or less a campus area network, and the reason I say that is because our servers are actually out on Saginaw Road, Saginaw and Eastman Road, different building altogether. So it's about a mile away, as maybe as the crow flies. It might be a little further than that, but that's what I would say that we're at, is a campus area network. We used to be a wide area network because we also had networking between ourselves and a Texas and Florida campus. Are we technically still? Yeah, I think we still have satellites, so I think maybe we are still a wide area network.
I heard we were the only Northwood location.
No, there's satellites. There's not a lot of them left.
Oh, I can't remember who it was, but I asked them and they said they closed all of them.
Did they close all of the satellites?
Yeah, I think it was, I don't know who I was talking to, but I know they closed the Troy one, and the Florida and Texas campus is completely shut down.
I thought we still had some. Well, I know the Florida and Texas ones, we sold those.
Yeah.
But I thought we still had some.
Oh, it was the associate athletic director.
Oh.
He said everything is shut down because he worked at the Florida campus and then came here.
Yeah, Florida's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Troy got closed.
Yeah.
I know we had one in Saginaw and that's closed.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Troy, the never mind, I'm not going there. I started picking on you today, and it's just going to keep going, isn't it? Troy, the oh, I was thinking, Troy, like the city of Troy from years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
It was right at Big Beaver and Crook. By,
Like right there.
by Raymond.
I love Troy. Troy's just a good area. My wife spends a lot of money in Troy when we go there. It's like, we used to, before we had our son, we used to drive down to Troy and we'd spend a weekend down there just goofing off. Troy, Detroit, stuff like that. There's nothing to do in Saginaw and Midland and Mount Pleasant. If you want to eat somewhere good, you're driving a couple hours.
I've gotten bored of it.
Well,
I had really good sushi.
but you're so close to everything else. So,
It's pretty,
if you get bored, that's because you don't leave the area. I mean, come on. You got Arts, Beats, and Eats down there in Rochester and stuff like that.
Rochester.
They do a pretty good job. Actually, I have a clock in my office that I got at Arts, Beats, and Eats about 5 or 6 years ago. Way overpaid because it's a work of art. It's like it's a plastic clock mechanism inside of a piece of art. Yeah, I don't know. What do I know? But anyway, yeah, so I might be mistaken then. Maybe we don't have all those other locations. I don't know if we still have the one in Flint even. Because it was ADP, it wasn't traditional.
Yeah, they still have it, but yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it's adult degree program.
Yeah.
They have satellites for that. And I know that not all of those closed. I'm pretty sure not all of them closed. But if they do exist, we're a wide area network at that point. But if they don't exist, then yeah, we're a campus area network. I wouldn't even say we're a metropolitan because we're not technically all over the city. We're a single entity. Now, I think I mentioned, like Boston, they have, did I mention that Boston has free Wi-Fi in the city? Yeah, that would be a metropolitan area network where they're offering that to everybody. Yeah.
I'm about to sneeze.
Oh, don't do that.
No, I'm not, but.
You scared it right out of you. See? Now you're going to sneeze like 3 times in a row because you
it'll
held that
happen
in.
like half an hour.
So anyway, not a difficult concept to understand these things. You'll learn a lot more about those in MIS1110. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. So if you're a cybersecurity major, you will take MIS1110. If you're an MIS major, you will take 1300. If you're a computer science major, you will take 1300. Therefore, we don't have to cover a ton of it. Okay? Matter of fact, this whole chapter is taking us down that rabbit hole. So, I'm looking to see if there's anything flat out. They talk about trends, and I talked a little bit about the history of connecting computers where, you started where we had like bulletin boards and you could call into specific people's computers and that and play games or transfer files or whatever you wanted. And that was my first experience with networking. And it has changed dramatically. Now we have broadband and we have fiber and all these other things that have sped this up and given us so much more capabilities, and they're trying to keep up with stuff, and you can actually stream high def movies and all that stuff. And I don't know if they're streaming 8K yet. I know we can stream 4K no problem. I'm wondering if we're going to be able to stream 8K as far as movies. I don't know. You could through fiber, I know. What's that?
I said that'd be so hard to do.
just because of bandwidth alone, and that's, you run into problems like that. Well, how much bandwidth do you have to do certain things? You have to remember that, and I talked about it briefly as a concept of, this will take 5 minutes. I talked about it briefly as a concept where, like satellite, you would assume was a very fast internet speed, but the upload speed was different than the download speed. And that created a bottleneck, sort of. And what that bottleneck means is that if I have, let's say I have this, and over here, doesn't really matter. Let's say over here, I'm starting with 100 megabytes. And over here, why am I not seeing, oh, because I gotta go back to insert. Oh, why me? Let's say over here I only have 25 megabytes. Okay? If this is the case, what's the fastest I can actually transmit data?
25 megabits.
Yeah, 25 megabytes a second or what have you. So all of this other space, the other 75 megabytes is basically wasted. So if I have fiber at my house and I can do 100 megabytes a second or whatever it is, I can still only go as fast as the server's providing that stuff to me, right? And vice versa. If Netflix has multiple fiber lines and tons of bandwidth, and they say, hey, we're streaming 8K, that does not mean everyone can get 8K, right? Because you might not have enough bandwidth on your end. That's a very important concept. It's just the bottleneck concept in itself. Recognizing that you can only go as fast as your smallest number.
That's the problem we're having with our Wi-Fi at my apartment. Is we could get a really, really good router if we wanted to, but it doesn't matter because we don't get enough speeds over there anyway.
And that's the other thing, right? You can buy whatever equipment you want in your house. And if you're doing an internal network in your apartment, you have roommates and you're on the esports team and you want a game, you can do it local area, no problem, right? Because that bandwidth that you're providing yourself with is, you could do fiber between rooms if you wanted to, and it would be no lag and everything else. But as soon as you go out to the internet, all that technology that you installed so you could do it in the house doesn't get you any further speed out there in the internet. So, yeah, that brings up a whole new concept when you start looking at business. What do we invest in? Now, TJ brings up this thing, well, it doesn't really matter the technology because we don't have the technology to go any, or we don't have the capability of going any faster. Well, one of the things that the businesses have to consider is scalability. So I buy technology that can do it, knowing that somewhere along the line, the system's going to be able to. Because somewhere along the line, the infrastructure that goes to your location will be able to handle that, and you're just preparing. It was the same you guys didn't have this happen in your lifetime, I don't believe. Let me double check. Oh, maybe. How many of you were born in 2005? Yeah, a couple of you, one or two of you maybe. In 2005, all televisions over 36 inches had to have a built-in digital TV tuner. You leaving us? He's leaving us. I would do that. So anyway.
Interrupting blowing noses and sneezes. And
Jeez. Just the interruptions left and right. Anyway, digital TV was an interesting concept when it came out because it's like you could get digital television through airwaves, but you couldn't get it through your cable company at the time. And then the cable company decided, and you had to buy a box to get it, to get that digital TV through the airwaves. And then cable companies said, okay, well, we're switching to completely digital. So all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, by a certain date, every TV over a certain size has to have a digital TV tuner. So they started releasing TVs that had digital tuners. If a TV has digital tuners, why do you still need a cable box? Well, they don't want their stuff stolen, so you have to use their proprietary device to get those signals, etc. But the idea is that TV should have been able to handle all of those signals, right? Nothing like having 30 remotes to do one task. So, needless to say, it became a requirement, and it became such a requirement that you have a hard time even getting a regular signal. Some TVs actually don't even have the tuner built in anymore, right? You can find things that don't have a tuner because, everything's streaming. Everything's through a cable box or something like that, a satellite box. So is it necessary for the TV to have it, or can we deal with just a smart monitor, right? Yeah, I agree with you. Glad you all agree with me. So anyway, it changed the way we did things. Disruptive technology, remember? So digital signal for television, disruptive technology, got rid of the other. What was interesting is, remember how I talked about analog signals going through airwave, and just because the signal degraded didn't mean you didn't get the signal? Well, anymore, if a digital signal degrades enough, it just doesn't come in at all. And when it does degrade, it almost pixelates, if you've ever watched the screen on something like that, where it starts going bad and it starts pixelating, and then you get big breaks in between and stuff, and it's just blotchy, and why watch it at that point? And then if it gets bad enough, then it just cuts out. Well, you used to not have that problem. You used to, get the fuzziness on the screen. You could still watch it, but it's changed over time. So digital, when it works, it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't. Same thing happened with music, obviously. Welcome back. So there was that. Let's go back to the book. We covered most of this. We definitely covered this, star network concept, having multiple paths to servers and everything else. Well, one of the things that we talked about, remember how we had the number of hops? Well, I remember years ago I had to actually, you would have a diagram like this one here on an exam, and they would be like, okay, well, how many hops, what's the maximum number of hops and minimum number of hops from point A to point Z? And you would literally have to list them off, right? And you would have to count them, and you say how many, and well, what are the IP addresses? So then you have to identify every IP address that it's hitting, and so on. It was just a way of making sure you understand how this works, where you have hops and alternate paths and everything else. So the straightest path is usually the fastest path, etc., etc. We know most of this. I'm looking. There is a difference between a network operating system and a regular operating system. Years ago, I used to install networking like a Windows Server on my computer instead of like Windows 95. And it was because it was more stable. There were problems with that because a lot of drivers in that weren't made to work with like the Windows Server, because it's more of a, I guess I'll say more of a down and dirty system, because it has very specific tasks, and those specific tasks are taking care of user accounts, deciding what individual users can do, assigning IP addresses, different things like that. So the system is, trying to think of the word, it's set up best for very specific tasks. Okay, it's proprietary for what the need is. Where can you do networking with Windows 10? Yeah, you could technically do it. It's not going to be as efficient by any means, but you could do it. Can you do it to the extent? Absolutely not. You know, I can create multiple users on a system, but that doesn't mean I can create multiple users that can connect to my system from the external side. So you might have to add more software, different things. But hubs, they used to be just a connection point. Hubs and switches. Switch was faster than a hub. A hub took your bandwidth and shared it with multiple computers. So I could have a hub that has, how many computers are in here? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Well, let's just say there's 30 computers in here, so I could have a hub that allowed 30 computers to connect to it. And if I was providing 10 megabytes of service, that 10 megabytes would be shared by all the systems, all these computers. And if Nick was over there streaming a video, he would eat up all the bandwidth, and the rest of you would be slow. Well, a switch deals with that differently. Okay, hubs just connect you together and share the resources. A switch actually controls the amount of throughput each individual can have, and they do it in a way that that allocates it in a fair way. So just because you're streaming a video doesn't mean you're going to be using all the bandwidth, even though it looks like you are. He would have the same amount of speed and so on. It just handles it all differently, the way it talks to the internet and the network and everything else. Those are both done for local area networks. As soon as you start moving out, you need a router. Okay. If you have cable internet or DSL at home, you have a router, right? You have a cable modem, but there's actually a router built in, even if it's only like 2 or 3 or 4 ports on the back that you can hardwire to. Or you have a wireless router that can assign wireless connectivity to all the devices in your house. Like I say, most of this stuff you guys have grown up with. So some of this stuff you're like, yeah, I know. I have a general understanding of this and all this other stuff. Well, that's good. This is the direction everything's moving. If you're a cybersecurity major, you will end up taking software-defined networking. If you're, I can't remember if it's part of the cybersecurity management degree too, but I know it's part of the BS degree. So, and if you're computer science, I believe you have to take that class as well. And it's just the concept that you're actually developing this whole thing using virtual machines and everything else for your servers. Yeah. I'm not going to go real in depth on that. You'll definitely cover that further on down the road if you take those classes. This class is an intro class. It's just meant to give you a snippet of each individual thing. And then what's really cool about a class like this is that you get these snippets and then you decide that maybe you want to go down that route of networking, and you might enjoy something like that, understanding how computers connect and communicate and everything else. It's a very lucrative field, even though we're going to software-defined networking, which gets rid of a lot of the infrastructure and stuff. It doesn't mean that you're losing jobs, it's just shifting what you do. But being able to connect everything, it's a pretty lucrative job. A network administrator can make quite a bit of money, depending on the corporation size and everything else. If you like data, you might go down that route. But this gives you just a little taste of everything so you can get an idea. You know, if you're taking computer programming, some people are taking to it and like, yeah, I'm losing myself in this. I hate my life now, Sanford, thanks. You reminded me I don't want to do this. Or, man, you ruined my life because now you made me realize that I'm really good at problem solving and I just want to continue. So that's the other issue, right? Yes, you ruined my life. You're like, wait, how do you ruin my life? So you have these concepts and all of a sudden it's like, man, maybe I want to dive down that rabbit hole and go in that direction. And can you make a lot of money doing that? Absolutely, especially in cybersecurity because, you know, they need people that can program to actually dive into data and everything else. So just different ways of dealing with things. If you like MIS, if you just love the idea of solving problems through integrating technology, then you keep going right down this route of more of a blanket approach where you, instead of getting very specific pieces and going that way, you just keep it open and you're like, okay, we're looking at how technology affects business processes, etc. How does that tie in with the conversation for Chapter 7? Well, that's where you're getting most of your capabilities these days to integrate systems, right? Collaboration has never been as good as it is today, especially from a distance standpoint. People being able to work from home and that wouldn't be able to do it without this. You know, it's changed the dynamics of business. You know, remember the whole flat world concept? Yeah, I remember the flat world concept. And someone saying, "Hey, the world's flat." No, the Earth is not flat. The world, as far as business, has been flattened, and it's networking that created that. You know, the internet wouldn't exist if it wasn't for networking. Networking had to happen first. So anyway, there's that. They start talking about corporate service and how you got to remember that another thing that's all tying together these days are your phone lines. At Northwood, if the network goes down, I don't have a phone in my office. That brings a whole new issue in our society, right? And that's safety. You got these people that are, you got these doomsday preppers, right? And I believe in being prepared, somewhat. I'm not going to build a bunker, you know. I keep just enough firepower in my house to keep people away from my food so I can protect my family, stuff like that. But, what's that?
Just your food?
I said, and protect my family. You missed that part. He was concentrating on food. You're hungry, yeah. You're like, wait, food? Yeah, no, I'm just. But no, yeah, it's protect my. You never have it to protect belongings. You don't. That's not the thing. I have a friend that one time said, man, he had something stolen out of his shed. It was a chainsaw that was stolen out of his shed, and he says, man, I wish I would have had a gun. I said, well, then you should never own one.
It's just a chainsaw.
I know, and that's my thing. Is it's not meant to protect possessions. It's meant to protect individuals.
Some possessions would be protected.
Depends what you like, right? Your car, your house.
Like, I don't know, if someone just came to my house and took my old PC, I'd be like, what?
For a PC?
Yeah, heck yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'd just buy a new one. Call the insurance company, be like,
Insurance company, they built it.
I'd be like, well, no, that's okay. You just save all your receipts.
House insurance?
Yeah. Yeah, you got homeowners insurance. And what you do is you say, okay, this is what it had, this is what it would cost to replace it, and you get some quotes, and then, yeah, you might have a $300 deductible or something that you have to pay, but you'll get a much better machine.
Yeah.
So, I've had to do it before because power surge, boom, different things like that. But, yeah, so, anyway, there's this fear that someone is going to have an EMP, electronic magnetic pulse, that would just totally wipe out all electronics as far as computer electronics. Anything that's on would be gone. So if this computer's on, no, it's going to cease to work. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if that's necessarily true. You know how big of an EMP it would take to take out the whole nation? You know how many it would take to get rid of all of the hubs so you have no communication between computers? That'd be awfully hard. And when I say hubs, I'm not talking about hubs like they used to be back in the day. What I'm talking about is that central, there's so many hubs in the United States that data just has to transfer through. So, is that something that's likely going to happen? No. But it does remind you that things like shortwave radio and ham radios and that do still have value. But if those are plugged in, technically those would probably be zapped too, because they have some type of electronics in them. You know, my father-in-law purposely keeps a vehicle that's really old, like a truck or something, that has no computer in it whatsoever. I'm like, okay, well, you can get somewhere. Where are you going? Everything else is shut down. You can't even get gas because all of them are electronic pumps, right? Where are you going to go? Do you have a tank in the ground I don't know about? I'll start filling up. Right? So, anyway, needless to say, it's one of those things where everything is tied together in your business, that all your phone lines and all levels of communication are going through your network, not hardwired like they used to be. Okay? As a matter of fact, I think my phone in my office, which I don't know how to use it, I don't really care because I don't answer it anyway, but it literally, I can use it to go through my Outlook contacts and just call people from it. Connectivity, gotta love it. We covered that. Key digital networking technologies, I'm looking to see it. TCP/IP is transmission control protocol and internet protocol. So this TCP/IP is something that's absolutely necessary for them to talk back and forth together. Thing is you will get more in depth on that in networking. We don't have to cover more than just explaining to you that there are standards and widely used standards across the board, no matter where you're at in the world, where you have to use TCP/IP to connect computers. It's just the way it is. Okay. Right. Okay. So there's that. Then you got client server. We've talked about that. I even talked about that to the extent of having dumb terminals where the server has the applications installed. All your computer is a access point, right? All the way to having computers that have the full-blown amount of power that's needed to run all their stuff and communicate with a server to store data, stuff of that nature. So, the packet stuff is quite interesting when they're going through this, because what's happening is you're not transferring a complete file all at once. And this is kind of explaining that. What's happening is you have a complete message, and that's going to be broken down into packets. And each packet's going to be sent individually. And what happens is this. This used to be something that I had to be shown by a professor years ago that I had. And we'll thicken that up a little bit. We'll give us a different color so we're out here. So, if this is a Word file, this might be broken down into 3 packets. Okay? And there would be a key identifier at the beginning and end of every packet. Okay? So, basically what we're saying is this packet would maybe start with an A and end with a B, and maybe this starts with a B and ends with a C, and this starts with a C and ends with a D, and so on. Okay? So when we send this data across the network to, TJ sending it to Nick, and Nick is going to send a file to Nina, and Kyle. Kyle's going to get a file from someone else, right? What does that do? Well, I know that my A to B, that's the first part of a file that goes to Nick. The second part of that file that goes to Nick should be BC, and then those check characters at the end allow me to check and make sure that the whole message is being sent. If this first part was corrupted at all, that B wouldn't be there, and this one would recognize that the file wasn't complete, and so on. Okay, it's for parity checks, error checks, and everything else. That also had to do with the concept of, even though you can connect a computer with two wires, all those other wires that are attached, those are for parity check and everything else. It's transmitting data back and forth for error correction and parity checks and stuff like that. Okay, but you have these start and end files. What was really interesting about this years ago to me was the fact that you could have a hard drive platter, okay, and your Word file, your first A to B might be right here, your B to C could be over here, and your C to D could be over here. But because they have the flags that represent, B to B and C to C, because those flags are there, it makes it easy to actually gather that data together to open that file and do stuff to it. And every time you save, like you make edits and stuff like that, you would add to that file. So if I added something else, that might be there, and it would start with a D and end with a E. Okay? Well, there used to be something, and you can still do it, and it'll speed your system up, believe it or not, but there is a program called defragmentation, and what it does is it takes all these little fragments of files and it lines them up in sequence. So instead of opening a file and having to go from here to here and here to here and all over the place trying to get this file and stuff, it takes them and lines them up in sequence, so it's easier for them to access stuff, and that will speed up your load times and stuff like that. Okay, because like I said, CDs and hard drives are not linear in nature, so when you're saving files, it's going to save those changes at the next available location. It's not going to save them where they were. Okay. It's not like a bucket of water where you just add some water and it just intermingles. It's you add, think about it that you're adding oil. So you've got water and you add oil and it floats to the top, right? All that other stuff is intermingled. Follow me? So, yeah. It's an interesting concept, but parity checking and error checking and everything, that's how we do this. And that's how it happens in the internet as well. Everything has a flag and it recognizes that flag. And it's not as easy as just A and B. You have algorithms and everything else that tie this together. As a matter of fact, it ties it together to a point that Nina knows. Nina knows exactly what I'm about to say. What am I about to say? Nina doesn't know. What I'm about to say is that it's to a point that you have the ability to do blockchain, right? So I have data on my computer, but I send some data to your computer to store for me, and TJ's computer, and Nina's computer, and everyone's computer has a different block of my data. Well, those flags allow me to pull that through, and that's where your encryption keys and that come in. 128-bit encryption key can take 100 years or something like that to crack at random, right? I can't remember. I'm going to look it up just so I get the number close. Now, it doesn't mean that you might not hit it by chance, but they're saying 1 billion years to crack the 128-bit AES key using brute force attack, blah, blah, blah. Okay? It doesn't mean you can't get lucky, but that's how long it should take if you have to try every possible combination, right? So if you have to do every possible combination, think about just has anyone ever had to figure out a combination for a lock that they owned? You know, you lose, you can't remember it, and it might have 4 digits, and how long does it take you to find the right 4 digits? Okay, and that's only 4 rollers of 0 through 9. Here you have 128-bit, which is huge comparatively, and that can be any character. Each one of those can be any character, any letter, any case, and everything else, right? Case sensitive, character sensitive. That's huge. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily take that long, because you could hit it by accident, right? So, I like this one. For 256. So that encryption, that we're able to use the network and infrastructure to keep our data separate. Which, what's the advantage? The advantage is, and I pick on you today, but I don't even know your first name all of a sudden.
Wow.
What?
I said wow.
Okay, that didn't. I'm going to call you Wow. What's your name?
It's the president, remember? Yeah.
Oh,
I don't even think he got the password.
Yeah. No, I got all that, so.
started with a C, didn't it?
Yeah.
It did.
Wasn't Cleveland.
Nope.
God, and I know it wasn't Clinton. I can't remember.
See, I can't even remember, and I looked it up.
Yeah. Who was it? Huh?
Is it Calvin?
Yeah, Calvin, there we go. So anyway, Calvin, what is the advantage of blockchain?
So that, like, basically you can store different things on, I guess, like, multiple computers.
But what's the advantage?
The advantage, it's faster than a lot of, like, other systems, especially like the banking systems and stuff like that.
It can be faster, right? Because you might be using much faster systems.
Yeah, but much more energy too at the same time.
It's more energy to some extent, not always, because the systems are going to run anyway.
Yeah.
But you're going down the right track, right? But it's secure.
Yes.
Especially if I'm using 256-bit or 128-bit encryption, it's secure. And not only is it secure on your system, but now I break it up and I'm like, I have a block of data that is on Calvin's. I have a block of data that is going to Nina. And then I have one that doesn't even work. Being nice today.
Thank you.
So anyway, now this block of data, you have to have all three of those to have a complete picture. You might be able to break into TJ's and get this block of data, but unless you have the encryption keys to get this one, and this one, you have incomplete data. As a matter of fact, it might not even be complete enough to put it together. Okay. So it's not as easy as just breaking into my system and going through my encryption. It's much more difficult because now I have to get into your system and break your encryption in yours, and vice versa, right?
Is it really unhackable?
No, nothing's unhackable because all it takes is well, it could be by chance, right? The pick a number between 1 and 10 game, right?
Only pick a number between 1 and billions.
1 in billions, yeah. But my thing is you can get lucky, right? Think about how many possible combinations there are for Powerball, but people get lucky, and they might have a method by which they choose their numbers, but it has nothing to do with the randomness of how it comes through, right? So yeah, you might have a way of dealing with it, and you might get lucky, and that's actually what they rely on, are multiple attacks and everything else. So, for those that end up watching this recording, I am perplexed because the camera keeps going on, or the projector was going on and off. So anyway, that's the same concept as what you are looking at as far as sending packets across the internet. Well, this is actually storing data out there in various servers across the internet, across the world, and using encryption and stuff like that. You know, a packet, you use encrypted flags to recognize whether or not these are error-free packets and stuff like that, and if they belong, and so on. So, same concept, just a bigger, more broad picture, right? Okay, so I'm looking. You have different layers of the internet, and you'll learn about that in cybersecurity. You might learn about that in 1300 as well. I'm trying to remember if it's included in that course. I'd have to check with the Weaver because he's the one teaching it now. It's an OSI model for security and recognizing what layer of the network that specific things happen helps you protect your system, right? You don't want to store very valuable data on, say, the application layer, because that's harder to protect because people can install applications on their machine, potentially, right? So, so there's that. I'm looking, so we did this. We talked about digital versus that. We talked about these. We got a little bit about bandwidth. What is the internet? We talked about at some point, and this is why discussion in class and just kind of going all over the place with examples and stuff comes in. It's not the first time you've seen this stuff or heard this stuff. You're seeing it again in a different format, okay? Oh, sorry. Not COVID. Oh, man. Wow.
Are you okay?
I was on a smart combo.
Oh, what was it?
You just hacked and then you just down some of that. Doesn't that burn the throat?
No.
You gotta get some water.
You know what they say? Man up.
You drink water a lot?
Me?
Do you think he drinks?
Does he look like a water guy?
Let me look at the ingredients.
Does that look like he has?
Very first ingredient, water.
Oh. Well, there's.
Maybe it was COVID. It might be contagious.
Sorry.
So anyway, let me get my voice back. We talked about analog signal versus digital, stuff like that. So it's coming back into play, not just through sound, when we're talking about sound files and the digital transmission and different types of signals, but it's coming back in because this is how we store data now, ones and zeros, and stuff like that. it's also how we transmit data. You know, we saw this, which we already did that, so I'm looking. VPNs, anyone in here ever use a VPN? Yeah, so you're doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing? Things that you don't want to be caught doing? Things that you don't want to show up on your home network?
Use a virtual machine, then you use the VPN, and then.
So that way,
Then you should go with Snap.
you
Yeah.
go on Snapchat on
Yeah,
public school.
that's what I would do.
Wi-Fi.
I would do this
It's a
on
classic.
Netflix, so that way I can get Netflix from all over the world.
Yeah.
They have different shows in different
Oh
countries.
yeah, that's true.
That's what I use it for.
I said, the thing is I said, anyone ever use a VPN? And I'm hearing, yeah. And I said to do things that you
Yeah.
probably don't want to be caught doing, and I hear, no, that's not why. And then find out the actual reason why is because you don't want to be caught using Snapchat on this.
No,
this
Oh, it's
computer.
just that the Wi-Fi wouldn't let you, like it would block it.
Yeah, so you're going past their security settings using a VPN, which you don't want to be caught doing.
I don't care if they catch me, I just wanna use their Wi-Fi.
You're breaking
My
rules.
dad doesn't even work it at
Yeah.
my old school, so
Yeah,
I'm
same.
like, crap. Can't do streaks.
We had a school like iPad, and like it had like a certification on it.
Mhm.
Like the second week, I just took it off, just made it my own iPad. So I could just do anything on it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then
I would never do something like that. In my lifetime, I would have never dreamt about doing something like that. Never.
Right.
I don't like to be controlled.
I never tried to hack anything, break anything, anything DeWeaver ever tells you guys, I didn't do. Okay? I've known him for a really long time, so if he tells you something, I didn't do it.
Is it bad when sometimes I'm watching Netflix from another country and then the sign comes up on my laptop like you shouldn't be doing this and then I just change the country? Is that a bad thing?
Well, hey, you know,
What are they gonna do?
I can't say if that's good or bad. You know, it's like I would have never done anything like that in my lifetime, ever.
They didn't have this, but if they had it, you wouldn't think about it.
It's like, I don't know. I'm not even dealing with it anymore. I'm not talking about that no more. They have different, I like how they get into different searches and stuff. Another way for search engines to become more discriminating and helpful is to make search engines capable of understanding what we are looking for, called semantic searches and stuff like that. Networking has created this ability to recognize how we're communicating. You know, using, it's not all about what Google and Amazon do by not stealing, but capturing our data and selling it and stuff like that. What it's about is the internet learning how we communicate, right? And the more you do on your personal device, the smarter your device gets. It recognizes what you're normally spelling wrong and will make suggestions to improve your spelling. And it can go as much as easily as as soon as I start typing something in, it starts giving me suggestions. And these are obviously absolutely nothing to do with what I've done today or even in the past, because I don't know any of these, but it's the most current thing that people may have been looking for in the world. That starts with a DIGI. Okay, so it starts making suggestions. It's recognizing, okay, well, you're in the United States and you're doing a search for something. So we're going to start making suggestions. Okay, and that is the history of the computer that's on the computer, but Is Google recognizing that, or is it pulling it from the computer? It's pulling it from the computer through networking, right? Yes. Don't go like, don't shrug your shoulders about
I
that.
just got the
Oh, you got the,
shivers.
I did that to you?
Nah, just,
My comment just struck you so deep to your core, you're like, ooh,
no.
got the shivers from that one. That's what you call life-changing experience right there. So, anyway, it starts looking at the way that we talk and the way that we type and the language that we're using. It's the same concept as trying to think of a good example. I don't really have one. I guess it is the example in itself, right? That as I start doing stuff on a search engine, it's recognizing and trying to give me feedback and help me. You know, your autocorrect on your phone starts recognizing what you're doing wrong most of the time and making suggestions and stuff like that. Don't ever depend on autocorrect. You can send a very negative email to someone like your boss. I think I told you I've done that. I was just typing away and I sent and I didn't read what was written and I had auto-corrected some things and I was like, oh, well, I didn't mean to call you that. I don't know if that really happened. It might be a story I made up, I don't know. But it might have happened, who knows. You know, all my stories come from the experience of others. Like, you know, using a VPN and a virtual machine to bypass security settings at a school. I would have never done that. But now I have that example to use from. So, anyway, they are looking at the richness of information that's being provided. And richness meaning, you know, communication of value. You know, it's not as simple as just saying hello to somebody. It's saying, hey, how you doing today, you know? I'm looking at going camping in a few weeks here, and I was wondering if you needed me to bring anything. And, you know, that's not very detailed, but then you get a little more detailed and it's like, hey, did you want me to bring beer? Okay, so now these people are going camping and they're planning on having beer. Yeah, I know you're underage. Oh, now I got a little more detailed and maybe something that people might actually take interest in. It's recognizing this stuff. It's keeping track of this stuff. It's not just Google or Amazon collecting data to target market you. Those keywords in that are starting to be kept track of. So just look at what happens with like the Boston Marathon bombing and stuff like that, and how they tracked people down based on their communication. It wasn't all, okay, let's find out who bought this product and where they bought it and so on. It's not just as simple as that. We're also looking at communication that had taken place in so many other avenues. And it does make you wonder, you know, I don't necessarily, I'm not a person that really cares, but, you know, there are people that are strong opponents of Big Brother and the concept of Big Brother, the government watching me and everything I do and keeping track of that stuff. And what I always say is, what do you care if you're not doing anything wrong? Right? My parents could have kept a watchful eye over me and tried to control my every move. You know, what difference does it make if I'm not doing anything wrong? Right? So the fact that they might be listening and doing things like that is totally arbitrary. But the reason that they were doing that, and this ties back into communication, is that there are standards and there are laws and regulations in how we communicate via technology. And after 9/11 happened, Homeland Security, I want to say, yeah, Homeland Security didn't start until 2002. Yeah, it was after 9/11. Wasn't very long after 9/11. But it formed, and there were laws that were put into place and stuff, or not laws, but, well, I guess a kind of a law. But certain things were enacted through Congress that allowed the government, Department of Homeland Security, and the NSA to literally record every conversation that was going on and analyze that information and look for keywords and stuff like that. Okay? There is a reason that you cannot just make statements about assassinations with a president's name on your email or via phone and not have Secret Service show up at your door. Right? Because it's going to recognize that communication. It's looking for keywords, the combination of those words, and then they're like, oh, well, are you making a threat? We're here to talk to you. You may or may not be going to jail, depending on how you answer these questions, and depending on other communication that we pulled up from you. And that was the Patriot Act. And did the Patriot Act go away? I'm trying to remember. No, that's the movie. I don't want that. Still in effect. No, it was through 2019. So they no longer have that right to pull in every piece of communication. Doesn't mean they're not, I don't know. But that expired. So what's that do? I don't know. Do they have other things that replaced it? I have no clue, but the Patriot Act itself expired. So they can't just necessarily go by what they were doing. They would have to have warrants and everything else to do this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all communication. It's all tied together, right? It's all infrastructure. It's all networking. This all ties right back into class. But laws and bills and legislation has been driving how our data is handled and what can be listened to, what can't be listened to, and all this other stuff. You've got Facebook that's in the news quite a bit lately, and some other social media that they're saying, well, I'm not willing to give you this information, I'm not willing to give you my client's data, versus, Google will sell data to anyone. They don't care who it is. They'll give your data to anybody. But Facebook might choose not to do something based on personal political beliefs, right? Or they might choose to do it based on political beliefs. So, if you have negative communication going on leading to whatever happened on January 6th, is that fair game? Are people, what are the laws in place, or the case law or what have you in place to support the government being able to get those messages, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can always argue that because it's Facebook, it's social media, therefore it's public information. I don't know. So, but even cell phones and that, they can't just necessarily give your stuff away. Now you have to read those acceptable use policies. Maybe somewhere in there it says, hey, if the police come to us looking for your records, we're just giving it to them. And you said yes. I don't know. But at the end of the day, yeah, not a hard chapter. Most of this stuff we've talked to about at some point. We can talk about some of this other stuff next class. Just seeing if there's anything that's absolutely, yeah, we'll have to say a couple things. But then next class, which will be next week, next Wednesday, we'll get into chapter 8. And then we're almost back on track, right? Getting awfully close. Man, we're actually holding pretty good on the stuff. Which means that this is week 6.
Yeah.
So we got next week. The following week we'll have a midterm. You guys ready for that? At the end of the day, if you're not ready for it, it's not my problem. You know what's best about other people's problems? They're not mine.
What's the midterm gonna be like?
Hard.
Do we have
question?
Isn't that just the 5 key concepts you learned?
One question. There might be a couple more questions, but not like hard questions.
It's just one.
There might be a couple more. You
We
know.
have to talk about 5 key concepts we learned.
Yeah, you don't remember the first day of class?
Aren't those all your exams?
Pretty much. Yeah. I might ask, and I'll let you know ahead of time, but I might actually ask another question or two that are
We
more
can write it
direct.
in like essay form.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I haven't decided if it's going to be in class or outside of class. I'm starting to think maybe in class. We'll see. The only reason I say that is it's so hard to tell if you actually wrote it. You know, I know Nicholas is a smart individual. I know he can write really well, and I can read his, and it's like, sweet. And then I read someone else's, and it's like dissertation or journal level, and it's like, wait, you didn't write that, right? So you got to be careful. I was going to use a bad example and say, well, so-and-so actually might write really badly, but I don't want to say that because it could be taken personally, so I changed my example. So yeah, you might be a very good writer for this level of education, but yeah, I might read something that's like up here and be like, that's not yours. So that's all I have. Enjoy the auto show. Enjoy your weekend. Stick around for the next class if you're sticking around. If you're not sticking around, get out. Okay. I will post this video.